right, let's take a quick pivot and look at today's business headlines. For help with that, let's bring in the Vice President of the Commonwealth Foundation and fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, Jennifer Stefano, and business and markets analyst and Newsmax contributor, Seth Denson. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
To you.
All right, guys, the markets, they were open for the very first time since Thursday following the holiday weekend, of course. Now, ahead of the opening bell, stocks are down slightly as investors brace for earnings reports and impact as well. So, Jennifer, is this week shaping up to be an ugly one?
Well, it could be rough coming off the holiday for investors with the market having been closed. But what I think people really have to look at is the 10-year Treasury. It's now, the yield curve has been reverted back to what it should be. And I think people need to take the long-term view on the economy. We're starting to see indications that there could be a recession, but this is a 2-year play. It's 2 years out. And I think there's going to be continued short-term volatility.
Okay, well, this obviously affects the housing market, and home builder confidence has certainly slipped. That's for a fourth month in a row as rising construction costs, home prices, interest rates, supply chain woes, they all continue just to take its toll. So, Seth, here's a two-parter for you. First, what does this do for the housing market? And two, have we finally seen the end of these historically low mortgage rates?
Well, let's the first one, the housing market for the short term at least is going to be pretty volatile, pretty rough for anybody trying to buy a house. Two things, we're low on inventory and we're high on demand. Same thing with every other aspect really of our supply chain. So that's a big challenge in the housing market. When you couple that with interest rates, that could be a problem trying to get a house. Now, I've said for a while, though, I think higher interest rates could help first-time home buyers because what's going to happen is institutional investors may pull back. Now, as far as those interest rates are concerned, it's really hard to tell. It depends on what the Fed does. I think the Fed's looking for a reason maybe not to raise interest rates. And if they do that, we could see the markets react and interest rates come back down. But I don't think we're going to see 2-3% interest rates for a very long time.
Okay, interesting. All right, how about this? Corn reached a 9-year high while natural gas surged to the highest since 2008. Jen, are the rising commodity prices simply heightening concerns over inflation, and how will companies deal with all of these rising costs?
Right, companies are going to have to slash costs. They're going to have to get really lean, which they should be even when times are good and prosperous. But the thing to look at with commodities is not just agricultural commodities, which are up over 7%. What's really driving those prices is fertilizer commodities. They're up over 20%. And that's really adding to the cost of food. And of course, we know corn goes into our gas. It goes into the bags that we make. It's in everything. We use it it's the base for so many things that we produce here in the United States. So you really are going to see a continued drivers of cost from these particular agricultural commodities.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I actually saw a documentary on corn one time. I mean, corn goes into things like batteries, things you don't even think about. So, yeah, it's a big deal. All right, former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey is slamming the board of his former company's response to Elon Musk's buyout bid, saying it's consistently been the dysfunction of the company. So, Seth, what should we make of Twitter's stability right now at this point?
Well, it's interesting. The board is really trying to push back against Elon or really anybody trying to do a takeover of Twitter or buyout. They're looking at implementing this what's called poison pill, meaning that if you're a shareholder, you have the right to now go buy an extra share for every one share you own at a massively discounted price. Now, what that will do is drive up the overall cost of a buyer. Where it makes it just almost unfathomable to spend the kind of money on Twitter. That's the way the board is trying to react to this. It's interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see what Twitter stock does this week. I think investors are kind of sitting back and waiting to see how the board ultimately plays this out. But I am holding off on really going deep into Twitter right now.
Okay. Well, technology bellwethers are set to report quarterly earnings this week, with the Netflix actually due later today. So, Jen, the prices on streaming services, they keep rising, but we keep buying. So what should we expect from Netflix?
I think Netflix is in a bit of a struggle right now. They really have a different model for earning than the other streaming services, in that they charge for technical things like having more passwords rather than for their content. They give all their users, regardless of price, the same level of content. And I think this is not a model that's going to sustain them moving into the future. But we are going to see these streaming prices continue to go up, making it not quite as efficient to cut the cord. We all thought it'd be so much cheaper to move to streaming. Not so. So, yes, everything is going higher. The dollar is purchasing less.
Well, here's the kind of the big news of the day. After a federal judge in Florida struck down the Biden administration's mask mandate for public transportation, the TSA and multiple airlines, they are taking action. Delta, Southwest, Alaska, United, and American, they have all dropped their mandates. Now, I know both of you obviously travel a lot. Seth, let me start with you. I'm sure you're flying high this morning.
I am, and actually I'm flying to Omaha later this morning. So I've got to go to Nebraska, and I'm really looking forward to this idea that am I going to walk into DFW Airport and not have to put the mask on? Am I going to be able to sit on American Airlines and not do it? If not, happy day for everybody. Drinks on me.
Jennifer, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wonder how many times I've walked by Seth in an airport and just didn't know it was him.
Right.
It's very exciting, Seth. We might be able to smoke and joke at the airport now. We know each other. But it's wonderful. Whatever airline celebrates the most, I'll be on it. I'm utterly over the moon and thrilled. This is long overdue.
Well, that was certainly a high note. We're not going to end on one, though. Lucky Charms is now under an FDA probe due to thousands of people complaining of feeling really ill, nausea. Jennifer, this sounds more than just unlucky. So what do you think General Mills needs to do at this point?
Yeah, look, we have a lot of case studies. They need to respond immediately. They need to make recalls as needed. They need to investigate them themselves and work with the FDA to find out if there is a source of contamination. But for my dollars, it's the best cereal. It's one of America's great innovations. And the person who invented the bag of marshmallows by itself, genius.
Yeah, I certainly love me some Lucky Charms. All right, Jennifer Stefano, Seth Denson, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.